Hello, I'm Maria Hall Brown, and this is LA Currents. Well, we've all seen the stories of the crisis at the border, but there is so much more to learn, which is why I'm delighted to be joined today by the Executive Director of the Salvadoran American Leadership and Educational Fund, Jocelyn Duarte. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
All right, as we were talking before we actually started rolling camera, this really is personal to you.
I am the daughter of immigrant parents. My father immigrated here fleeing civil war, as well as my mother from Guatemala and El Salvador. And so I've intentionally made my work to be within my Central American community here in Los Angeles.
Well, as I mentioned in the introduction, there is really a remarkable story with a lot of pathos and a lot of heart and a lot of tragedy taking place right now, but there's a lot of misconception about asylum seekers and why they're coming. And what is the true story about why someone would actually leave their country?
A lot of violence that is existing in those countries that are pushing people to flee. A lot of gender-based violence, a lot of gang violence, environmental refugees, people that are fleeing these conditions that are, happening in their countries. We need to understand these root causes in order to be able to change our immigration system.
Are you optimistic?
I am. I think that I took a deep breath in January when we had a new administration, because I knew that it was, for some of our families, it really was a life or death situation, but also of the span of decades of separations of family. And so there's real new hope with the new Citizenship Act and ensuring that people that have been here, that have been making meaningful contributions to our country, that are law-abiding citizens, that are here and have been here, have the opportunity for the first time to be able to, have the ability maybe to even go back to their country and have a pathway to a residency, a pathway to citizenship. This is their home, and I think that is why I'm optimistic, because I know that the change that needs to happen is going to happen, not only because of SALEF, but because of all the organizations and the people in this wonderful city, in this country, that know the change that needs to happen and are making the change happen.
There's a new immigration act that President Biden has put forth. Has it made the process any easier, or are there changes that are happening that would affect what you are able to do with these asylum seekers, and even those who are already here in the U.S. that are perhaps not documented at this time and are looking to actually become legal citizens?
We definitely have seen a shift, and I get, for community-based organizations that are supporting immigrant families, the changes couldn't come fast enough because we've had such a backlog, whether it's through citizenship and citizenship applications and people being able to become citizens, or seeing denials of asylum seekers and the changes that were made to policies internally and memos with USCIS. And we're starting to see shifts, and we're starting to see we're moving in the right direction, but it's not coming fast enough. And so it really needs to be an overhaul of our immigration system that needs to take place in order for the legal processes that are already in place, like becoming a citizen. It shouldn't take you 1.5 years, 2 years to become a citizen, or it shouldn't, or seeing those high rates of denial, taking away the violence component when it comes to asylum seekers, and having those provisions being removed really hurt asylum seekers, or even women that were fleeing based on gender violence. So all of those things that we are hopeful for this administration, and why we put our support into the change that we saw that we needed, it was because we need this change urgently.
Okay, so I need a little bit of a clarification, because there are youth that have been here in the United States for a certain period of time, and I know DACA, but I don't know, what's the difference between TPS and DACA?
Well, the similarity is that it's basically a deferral. It's not permanent status. It is basically like a permit for you to be here that has to be renewed every 18 months. Okay. And so in that case, in that they're both similar. TPS is temporary protected status, and temporary protected status is basically a band-aid immigration remedy that is it's temporary. And it's temporary because like I mentioned, you have to renew every so often. And it's a very vetted process. You have to, ensure that you're following the law, that you're paying taxes, that you're an upstanding citizen. And it's temporary for that reason. But you have people that have been on TPS for over 20 years.
Oh my.
So people from countries like Central America, like El Salvador, Honduras, and Nicaragua are the 3 countries in Central America that are beneficiaries of TPS, where you have over 250,000 TPS holders right from that region. The reason why people from certain countries become eligible for TPS is because their country was either a natural disaster or some that prevents them from going back home. So in the case of Central America, it was the earthquakes, Hurricane Mitch, and things like that happened in the early 2000s that made it possible for them to apply for something like TPS. Now DACA is for youth, basically youth that came here at a very young age and did not come here obviously on their own willingly because they were children, and they are then granted a status as long as they meet the requirements, like having attended high school, attending college, and again, very vetted process. Have to have great record, right? No criminal history, paying taxes, and being great citizens. So I think that the takeaway and the similarities on both of these programs is that the people that have these are beneficiaries of these programs are good people. Immigrants that are out there, are working, are going to school, and are making meaningful contributions to our society.
And I'm going to add, because I know that there's a lot of thought that they are taking from the general fund and not putting back in. So I'd imagine that there's also the issue of making sure there's a clarification that these are law-abiding, tax-paying citizens, and those that are not just taking from our system from those that are paying taxes.
Yeah, that conversation, it's always very important to understand and to clarify. Immigrants that are here, that they pay taxes, they are working and making contributions, are law-abiding citizens, like you mentioned, and they are not eligible to receive benefits like a citizen of the United States would be eligible to receive. So there's always a misconception that they're taking from our system. Actually, they pay more taxes. They pay millions and billions of dollars of taxes that they themselves do not get to benefit from. And I would say that they aren't taking anybody's jobs because they're doing the work that other people don't want to do. And so I think that, whether you are an immigrant and you are picking, you're a farm worker, or you're a DACA student who is a medical, student, or even a doctor, right? Those are both equally as important to our society, and are exactly what immigrants do to our country, which is make meaningful contributions, and that is historical.
How many clients are you able to serve?
We've helped over 1,000 people become citizens since we initiated our program back in 2017, and we continue to serve, through our scholarship fund, our youth, and our summer youth programs. So SALEF is able to work with about 10,000 people a year.
Bird's eye view of this whole thing seems absolutely overwhelming and almost impossible to even manage. Are you overwhelmed and intimidated, or do you just feel as if every day you're re-energized that you have to be able to make a difference, if not for everyone, at least for a goodly portion?
Every morning I wake up and I feel very fortunate to be able to do this work and really transform my community. Not only my community here, but my community, transnationally. So I think that one of our mantras at work is, the work that we do is transforming lives. And I think that it is very, I haven't had time to stop and think about being overwhelmed, because there's a need and there's a knock on our door, and we have to respond.
I'm sure your parents are very proud of you.
Thank you.
All right. So if people want information, SALEF.org. All right. Well, it was lovely to meet you. Thank you for all of this incredibly important information, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much for having me and giving me the space.
And that is a wrap on this LA Currents.